What's up, YouTube? This is Artanis TCG for ShankatsuXero's channel, and I am bringing you my undefeated first place Primite Blue Eyes deck profile. I generally think this deck is going to be one of the better decks in the format. I understand that a lot of people call it Brick Eyes and everything because of its history in the past, from back in 2016. But the new cards really do help with a lot of the consistency problems, and especially the supplementary engine of the Primite cards just push this deck to a new level that it just didn't have before. But before I get started, I'll quickly just kind of recap how my locals went. I went, like I said, XO. My first place was against Red Dragon Archfiend. I did go to game 3 in that one because he got Supernova with Red Zone on the field. And if anyone knows about that deck, that one Red Supernova is very big, and it comes hard to get over because if you try to out it with monster effects, it can just wipe your entire field. So couldn't get over that, and that was game 2. Round 2 was against the Mirror, and this was against the pure Blue Eyes variant. No Primate card, no nothing. So just to be a warning to everyone that's out there thinking that the Primate version has to be the best version, which it is. The data shows that. But I do think if you build the pure right, especially with the correct extra deck, it can compete definitely at a locals level, if not a potential regionals level. I would not try to take it to OICS because you will probably have a bad time. And then round 3 was against Fiendsmith, Azamina, Chimera. That deck is definitely give me trouble a bit because of the Bystials, but you can play around the Bystials if you know how to time your stuff right. But went to game 3 because in game 2 we got in a slugfest in game 1 of round 3. That one, getting back and forth, getting over the Chimera Illusion Beast is not easy because it can't be triple battle, so you can't just run over it. And if you do battle it, it zeroes out your attack and your negates your monster's effect and reduces attacks to 0, and it can hurt. I'll show the toolbox that I have in the extra deck to help clear those monsters. I've been playing this deck for over the past week because I was able to get my cards early because the game stopped. Thank you. But the deck has performed well after my testing and everything. The deck has been very consistent and just it's been a good deck. We'll now go and get into the deck profile. Got to represent the Kaiba token with the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon in the background. And I have to split up between the engines and the non-engine, and then obviously we'll kind of go into it. But for starters, we have probably the best starter in the deck, which is Sage with Eyes of Blue. On normal summon, you can add any light tuner monster from your deck to hand. That includes Effect Veiler, which I am playing 3 of those. Which Effect Veiler itself is a 1-card starter, as much people don't think about it, but it can. It's just not a very good 1-card starter because it goes into your Link 1. And then obviously you can discard it and target another monster, and especially on a Blue Eyes monster from your deck. So keep in mind, Blue Eyes monster. So that gives you flexibility that a lot of people don't. Then we have one of the best cards in the deck. We have Maiden of White. This is a custom card. It can get True Light from anywhere, hand, deck, or graveyard. So even if your opponent pops it and it's in the graveyard, you can get it back. Every time you summon Blue Eyes from the deck, on your opponent's turn or your turn, you can summon it. And also, if it gets targeted, you can summon a Blue Eyes monster from the graveyard, or a light or a level 1 tuner, which is generally Sage or Effect Veiler. So there's definitely different ways you can do it, but this is definitely one of the best cards in the deck. It comes up all the time. One thing I was learning with the deck is I kept missing the trigger on this when I summoned Blue Eyes. But once you kind of play the deck more, you should be able to keep doing it, and eventually I caught on to doing it. But the deck has been super, super consistent for me. Yes, the deck can brick, but any deck can brick. So that's the notion that people have got to get out of their heads. Just because you're playing vanillas doesn't mean it's bad. But then we have the star of the show, the 2 Blue Eyes White Dragon. You don't really want to play 3 in this deck because then it will be a problem. Brick, you can't play 1 because the Bestial, so 2 is that sweet spot. And this just helps push your game when you have True Light and Primite Literally Load. For the spells, we are playing 3 Wishes. This card is absolutely insane. It's definitely the Ash Magnet, the Ash Magnet of the deck, but it allows you to add any Light Tuner, so you can add Infect Veiler, your Maiden, your Sage, any of them in any spell or trap that mentions Blue Eyes White Dragon. You cannot add Mausoleum White because Mausoleum does not mention Blue Eyes White Dragon. Speaking of that, we are playing the 1 Mausoleum. This card is, I know it's brick. I actually don't necessarily care if you open it because it becomes an extension because you get that extra normal summon and to dump off of the Foolish Burial for any normal monster, which it comes up. And then we are playing the 1 War. This card is really, really strong because it's an E-Telly for the Blue Eyes, or if you have a Blue Eyes, you can summon a Light Tuner out of the deck. But this also can recover your banished Blue Eyes White Dragons, so if it gets Bestialed, you can recover it. Depending on how the Bestials shape up in the format, this is a card you might want to think about running 2 of. Obviously, you don't necessarily need to, but if a grinding game comes and both your Blue Eyes get banished, the second one could easily come up. And then to round out the Blue Eyes engine, we are playing the 1 True Light. This is the cornerstone of the deck for the most part, because it allows you to set any of your Blue Eyes spell and trap cards, as long as you don't have that same name in the graveyard. But these can banish themselves. This can perform a fusion summon from hand or field, and this will equip a extra deck monster to an additional 400. But it also is what allows you to cheat out Tyrant Dragon, and we'll get that in a second. They're playing the 1 Majesty of the White Dragons. This allows you to reveal up to 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons, and for a non-targeting pop. This card is great, especially when you can start recycling it off of Tyrant Dragon. You just got a near infinite grind game with it. That's the one thing about this deck, is it got a near infinite grind game, and with this deck, less is more. That's a key thing about it, because that's when I set up minimal boards, and I was able to win the grind game because I didn't overcommit. That is one thing I think a lot of people don't do or have a habit of doing in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is overcommitting, and they get punished for it. I do it all the time, and I've trying to learn. Listen, sometimes you get greedy and you play into stuff. It happens, but that's the way it goes. But also, then the other side effect is you can banish this to perform a ritual summon. Not that comes up in this version of the deck. But if you're playing up here and you want to play Chaos Max, it's definitely an option. Next, we have the Primite engine. We have the 3 Primite Dragon Ether Barrels. This card is nuts. It allows you to get any spell. It allows you to set any Primite spell trap card, and it also is the bridge into the Blue Eyes engine because of the Link 1. It's a level 4 lower dragon. And during your standby phase, so if you have a normal monster on the field or graveyard, you can add it back to your hand, so you have constant resource generation. And 1600 isn't necessarily something to snuff at either. Next we have the other, and these are all 1-card starters, by the way. Next we have 3 Lordly Loads. This card is definitely one of the heart and soul of the deck, besides the True Light engine, or Blue Eyes engine. On summon you can add any Primate card, so Ether Barrel or the Drill Beam, which is the real goat of the deck. Obviously you can add it, because if you do, you can normal summon Ether Barrel, set this, activate that, and then add the Drill Beam. Now the only thing that does kind of suck about this deck is you could potentially overload your spell back row, which is something you have to be aware of with this version. But as long as you anticipate that, it's not usually a big deal, but it's a 1-card starter that gets you into your Blue Eyes. And then obviously the Primite Drill Beam. If you have a Primate card in hand or on the field, you can reveal it, and this targets any card on the field, negates its effects, and banishes it. And if you have a Primite Barrel on the field during your turn, you get to reset it. And it never goes away. So you have a constant resource for negation. Honestly, this card is probably one of the stupidest cards I've seen in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! But it's also for normal support, so that's why I like the Primate engine. I would like to see more development with it. But that is it for the Primate engine. Now we're going to go to the non-engine. This is mainly a hand trap build. The great thing about this deck is you can play board breakers, you can play a mix and match, whatever. Honestly, it's kind of your oyster what you want to do. You have a fair amount of things. But we are playing the triple Fuelos. You don't necessarily care if you're going first or second because you have discard outlets for this card, which allows you to, if you open wishes, you can discard it and go in second. It's just good, as it's, maxi at home. Next we have the triple Ash Blossom. We also have two Nibiru's. I don't like 3. 2 seems to be that sweet spot. It definitely comes up. You can play 3 if you want, but I think 2 is just fine. We're now also playing 2 Bestials. With the format, with Fiendsmith in the format, obviously in the mirror, the Bestials are relatively good. I think 2 is fine because you can, because from my testing, it was fine. We're playing 1 Cold by the Grave to deal with the pesky hand traps, specifically like Shifter, Droll, and Lockbird. Droll does hurt this deck, although it can play through it better. Shifter kind of kills it. Now we are playing 1 kind of contradictory in the deck. 3 Dominus Purge. So this does conflict the Bestials and 1 or 2 cards in the extra deck, but I think the trade-off is better because Purge prevents you from playing into Talents. Talents is pretty much everywhere right now. Mine's not in the main deck, but I am citing it. But Talents can absolutely just crush the deck, as most decks can. But this allows you to play around it. And it came out for me today. Especially when you run Tyrant, though, you can also start resetting this, and you can really start applying some pressure. And then to round out the hand traps, we are playing triple Infinite Permanence. Probably right now, I would actually argue one of the best hand traps in the game. Once again, doesn't play in Talents. It's Monster Vacation. If you go in second, you can set it. And on the rare occurrence it does happen, because people do play in the Imperm column, you can negate a spell and trap. So the deck is 42 cards. I built it that way on purpose. 42 seems to be a good number. It minimizes the chance of opening the bricks, but it's not. But if you're playing 3-0s, the chances of a 40 card deck's like 133. It's now like 32% chance. The chances are minuscule of not opening a card that I don't justify it. So 42 worked great for me. It feels good, so we're gonna keep it. Now moving on to the extra deck, we are playing 1 Tyrant and 1 Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate. Obviously, you equip this to a Blue Eyes monster due to Banishing Witch's graveyard effect, and then when you Synchro Summon or link it off, you can send the graveyard, so it's good protection against for your Blue Eyes against targeting. Tyrant Dragon is honestly one of the best cards in the extra deck because it's unaffected by all trap cards, and even if your opponent pops your True Light, you don't care because this is unaffected. So even if it nukes it, it doesn't care. It also destroys every single. It can attack all your opponent's monsters at once, so it's a good going second. But it also then, if it destroys a monster by battle, you can reset any trap card. And we'll see. And I'll show you the extra deck here, the side deck here in just a bit. And you'll see why it's actually good. We are playing the 1 Typhon. This came up quite a few days because the deck, as much as Blue Eyes summons big beat sticks, this deck can have a problem getting over some bigger monsters, and the fact that it's a non-targeting bounce does come up. Now for the links, we are playing 2 Blue Eye Spirit Dragon, 1 Hieratic Seal. You could up a Hieratic Seal to 2. I never came up for it to me, but playing 1 is you have to play 1 at minimum. You could definitely play 2 if you want. You only need 2 Blue Eye Spirit with Eyes of Blue. It is a strong enough card on its own. You do get the second one, it does come up, but it gets you your Mausoleum, and you can get a Blue Eyes out of the graveyard because by dumping it. So Spirit of Eyes of Blue is fantastic, and for the final Link monster, we're playing 1 SP Little Knight. This is a flex spot, but for me, it did come up, and it allowed me to out a problematic monster today. So I do think SP is still worth running, but if you don't have to, you can run Lina, you can run another Spirit. There you have options. This deck does have flexibility, does have a few flex spots. Then onto the synchros, we are playing only 2 Blue Eye Spirit Dragons. You can play a third if you're, but I don't think you need it because for me, I'm never going all in. Once again, as I said earlier, less is more. By layering your interruptions, what this deck can do, you actually can probably win. The idea of this deck is you shouldn't have to win on turn 1. You want to win the grind game. And if you keep that in mind, you have a strong probability of winning the game. Because the idea is that you can just out-resource your opponent through the Primite cards and just summoning big monsters. So don't let anyone fool you otherwise. And then for Dragon targets, we are playing 1 Moonlight Rose Dragon, because you can quick effect tag it into it and bounce a card. We're playing the 1 Lightstorm Dragon, which is a fantastic going second, popping back row. You can hard make it, but obviously you can just tag it in because it's a light dragon. Then we are playing the 1 Crimson Dragon. It's easy to go to. It's light dragon, spirit out. And then for the Crimson Dragon targets, we are playing 1 Stardust Cypher Divine, 1 Cosmic Blazar, and then 1 of the Ultimate Spirit Dragon. Once again, you can move a couple of these around. You can take 1 out, put in another spirit. There's options. I just like to have the versatility. And you can go into these, so it's not to say that you can't. Especially if you do a double spirit play, ending on this and this is really good because this protects this from destruction at the end phase, so you don't get to summon back your spirit dragons. But now you have 2 massive monsters on the field. That is it for the extra deck, and now we will go into the side deck. For starters, we are playing 3 Artifact Lancia. You have to play this because Mouse is in the format. I do have a Mouse player at my locals, but I never played him today. But obviously you want it because it's just good right now. It's also good against Crystron and a few other decks. And it can even be good in the mirror, because your opponent can't banish their spell and trap cards for the additional effects. It will come up. Next we are playing 2 Molcharming Perulias. I decided this isn't obviously going second because I'm playing a lot of hand traps. And there's flexibility in what you can side in. Now you can take out a Purge, a Mash or whatnot. So it comes up. Also playing 2 Meows. Just for the extra Malice matchup. I'm going to probably change up the Molcharming ratio a bit. But Molcharmers are good not to play. You could maybe cut this down to 1 if you're wanting to keep 3, but having the flexibility. You could maybe do 2 Perulia, 1 Meows. We're then playing the 1 Talents. We're also playing 1 Thrust. I'm probably going to bump Thrust up to 2 because there's enough cards and stuff you can set off of Thrust. And then for Thrust targets, we are playing 1 Daruma Cannon and 1 D-Barrier. I know a lot of people have been cutting D-Barrier, but I think that's a personal mistake. And my reason being is Rizal Fiendsmith is the best deck of the format. I don't think anyone can really argue that right now. But even if you're going first against Rizal Fiendsmith, this still cuts out 1/2 the deck. So playing against the Fiendsmith cards becomes a lot easier to deal with. I understand why some people choose not to do it, or why they chose to drop it, but I think that is a mistake. I think D-Barrier is still too good right now to not do it. We're playing the 1 Skill Drain because this deck, with it, basically becomes Skill Drain Beatdown. You still summon big monsters. And then for rounding out the final, we are playing triple Solemn Judgment. The reason I'm choosing to play Judgment is because right now it's still just very flexible. If you don't want to play this, you can play Strike. Both are good options, but I played this because we're starting to see a shift more towards board breakers, and this just says no. That's why I choose to play it. You can still negate summons from Link, Xyz, so it still has that flexibility. Well, that's why I chose to play Judgment, because it gives you a little bit more, it gives you better flexibility over Strike. So that's my reasoning on that, but you can kind of mix and match what you want. But that is the deck profile, everybody. Once again, I appreciate everyone here. I appreciate if you could give a like, subscribe on ShankatsuXero's channel. And if there's any options or things you think could use different, please mention down below in the comments. But that is all I have for you today, and I will catch you guys in the next one.